Shayna Lewis is a Sudan specialist and senior advisor at Preventing Ending Mass Atrocities, also known as PAEMA. She joins us live from London. Thank you for speaking to us, Shayna. Now, you visited Sudan a few months ago and have reported back to the UN Security Council on the terrible situation that's happening there. What were your findings then, and how does it compare to what's happening now?
Thanks for having me, Sarah. My June trip to Khartoum was pretty astonishing to see the devastation of the capital following 2 years of control by the Rapid Support Forces. I witnessed the systematic destruction of Sudan's medical infrastructure through visits to many of the public hospitals across the capital, and this was actually a moment of hope. It was hope that the conflict would soon see a fast resolution, but in fact all we've seen is a shifting of the axis of conflict from the centre and eastern areas of the country further to the west. What we're seeing at the moment in Fasher is devastating, and it's most devastating because we in civil society, the international community, have been warning the international community for over a year about the atrocity risks for the civilian population of North Darfur. And only 6 months ago, in April, the RSF attacked Sudan's largest IDP camp, Zamzam, and killed, estimates are upwards of thousands of civilians in the course of a couple of days. At the moment in Fasher, civilians are being massacred by the hundreds. We're already at estimates of thousands, but due to the ongoing telecommunications blackout, the only footage that we have, the only source that we have of the crimes happening are the RSF self-recorded footage, as Hiba mentioned. Right. And also satellite images. What's really astonishing right now is that the blood stains of Fasher civilians are visible from space. This is a moment that rivals Gaza, Srebrenica, Rwanda, and will go down in infamy. The RSF constructed an earthen wall to contain the population of Fasher in the siege that they lay for over 16 months. And what they are currently doing is stationing their vehicles at the exit points of this earthen wall and controlling the flow of civilians exiting the city and massacring civilians at these exit points. It is devastating.
So I'll get to Fasher in a moment. I just wanted to go back to something you just mentioned, that you had been warning for a very long time that this could happen. This was 6 months ago. Why were those warnings not listened to, and why has the international community been so slow to act?
Sarah, I really think it comes down to a lack of political will. It's not a lack of information by being received by the international community. The warnings, I actually checked at PAEMA, we've been issuing warnings since October 2023 about the risks to North Darfur in particular. So right now, when we think about how do we save any lives that are left in North Darfur, particularly Fasher, but also in the Kordofans, where over the weekend we had a massacre in the town of Bara, where hundreds of civilians were also killed. We really need to exert more pressure on the international community to develop this political will, because there are many, many responses that could have been taken. We have made extensive recommendations on civilian protection, and none of those policy recommendations have been heeded.
Now, going back to Fasher, because you did mention it just earlier there, and obviously we've seen some of those satellite images that you also have talked about of what is presumed to be piles of dead bodies and blood. What's your assessment from the contacts that you have there on what's going on at the moment, and why is Fasher significant in the first place?
That's a hard question to answer at the moment, Sarah, because we have had near constant contact with civilians inside of Fasher and civil society activists and journalists who over the past year have been bravely sharing testimony about the reality and the humanitarian situation inside the city. The city has been subject to near daily shelling and drone strikes by the RSF over the past year. And since Sunday, when the RSF captured the final base of the Sudanese armed forces, we've lost contact with everyone. And partly that is because of the telecommunications blackout that I mentioned that has been ongoing since February of last year, and the fact that Starlink devices provided the only lifeline connecting Fasher to the outside world. But it's also because the RSF have confiscated planted RSF Starlink devices across the city. So again,
Do you think this is tactical? Because, you know, in your report, and you are mentioning now, the lack of ability for people, I suppose, to communicate with the outside world. Is that a tactical move? The less people know about it, the better. But also, you mentioned earlier about the hospitals and the situation that you'd seen there. And in your report, you said RSF had used Sudan's major cardiac and renal transport centres as incinerators. So that kind of destruction of infrastructure, destruction of telecommunication abilities, what does that lead to, do you think?
It's a policy that is being used by both sides to keep Sudan in the dark and keep the world's attention away from what is happening in Sudan. The telecommunications blackout is not something that is just driven by infrastructure damage, but also we're seeing both sides weaponizing telecommunications access. Only about 2 months ago, the Port Sudan authorities decided to switch off WhatsApp, phone and video calls in the country, which is again trying to remove the Sudanese population from being connected to the outside world. So this is a problem that we have been trying to address for almost 2 years now. But again, there is no political will internationally to A, raise this at the highest levels diplomatically, but B, to actually send in independent technical assessment teams to start doing the repairs that are required to restore telecommunications access.
And do you think that is possible? In my understanding, in the lead up to this war, some of the foreign presence, let's say, they were forced to leave.
What we saw within 2023 was the drawdown of UNITAMS, the UN political mission that was in place to support the transition from the former regime of Omar al-Bashir to a civilian government. The UNITAMS mission was really pushed out at the behest of the Sudanese armed forces. So yes, there is definitely a challenge in getting any kind of independent teams on the ground, but considering that they would be providing technical assistance and that the Port Sudan authorities have recognized the need for technical reconstruction assistance across Sudan, I do think there is a window there, but it requires the political will that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, exactly. OK, thank you very much, Shayna Lewis. I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there from PAEMA.
Thank you.